Welcome to the Retro Horror Academy. My name is Daniel Richardson, and tonight we're going to be looking at the year in horror 1957. Guys, we got a huge episode for you tonight. Not only are we ranking the top 10 horror films, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous about this. Listen, the Retro Horror Academy, we have made some controversial calls in the past. You know, we've ranked some Mad Ape, angry ape films high on our list before. I guess you call them mad apes, right? Wild apes. Killer apes films high before. Famously, I fought for King of the Zombies to take the top honors once. And I think our most controversial call was probably putting the Spanish language Dracula film over the original Dracula movie. However, I think this is going to take it all. We may lose some of the crowd with this one. What little crowd we have assembled may turn on us by the end of the show. But that's okay. In fact, when we get to that point, I'm going to forge ahead, still give all the details of the movie, and then I will explain ourselves afterwards. But yeah, we'll get there. Anyways, like I said, in addition to the top 10 horror films of 1957, we also have our largest inducting class into the Horror Hall of Fame. So we got 7. That's right, 7 inductees, class of 1957. So let's get into it. Let's take a look real quick just where horror is at, because we got some stuff emerging this year that's going to kind of change the landscape a bit. Hammer Studios, based out of the UK. At this point, they may have done some horror. I don't think we're going to cover the very first one. I don't know, maybe it is. I want to say I've heard before they dabbled a little bit, but nothing that was ever successful or anything. But they mostly just did film noir, dramas, mystery thrillers, whatever. But yes, they're going to really explode onto the scene with a horror film that's going to begin the Hammer horror cycle, which would run strong into the next couple of decades. And go a little further. I think they kind of run a little bit in the 80s. Not as big as it was in the 60s and 70s, though. But still, Hammer horror begins. We also see the rise in drive-in horror. We got movies such as I Was a Teenage Werewolf. They also did I Was a Teenage Frankenstein. And some others. And basically, it was a way for studios to kind of churn out these cheapy exploitation films, aim them at a teenage crowd, and then, just go directly to the drive-ins. And, boom, hopefully get to keep your money. If you did a double feature, try to do your own double feature, so that way you keep all the money, not to split with somebody. But yeah, drive-in horror is on the rise. And I mentioned Hammer horror, coming out of the UK. We'd actually see a nice little rise in international horror in general. Italy would be jumping into the fray, big time coming up. And we see a bigger output from Mexico as well, among other places. But, really, so yeah, the international scene in horror is on the uptick. In fact, horror in general is just kind of on the upswing right now. So, great time to be a horror fan if, you were back in 1957. That's one thing it's... Ever since I was a kid, horror has pretty much always been strong. Even in the 90s, maybe horror films were kind of faltering a little bit, but the 90s still gave us Scream. And even the movies that aren't really considered classics, I still love. Horror was never dead at any time in my life. It was always a popular choice one way or another. So it's just kind of odd to think there was a time when horror wasn't all that, and especially after you had the Universal boom of the 30s and 40s, so to kind of have this lull in the 50s, it's just kind of hard to imagine, but hey, here we are. All right, so that's enough context of the decade. Let's get into the show. We'll start things off with the Horror Hall of Fame, and like I said, I got 7 inductees, so let's get to it. First one we're inducting. If I'm butchering these names, I want to apologize in advance, because especially the last 2 or 3, it's just I'm guessing at best. So yeah. Anyways, number 1, we have Evelyn Ankers. She's a British-American actress. She was actually a leading actress all the way through the 40s, and actually shared the screen with Lon Chaney Jr. quite a bit. They were kind of paired up, quite a bit throughout her run. Some stuff that she did that we did not cover on this show: Jungle Woman, Hold That Ghost, and The Frozen Ghost. But on this show, we know her for The Wolfman, The Ghost of Frankenstein, Captive Wild Woman, Son of Dracula, The Mad Ghoul, Weird Woman, and The Invisible Man's Revenge. Yes, big fan of her. You go back to listen to the previous shows where we've covered these movies. She's always a highlight for me. I was always a big fan, especially in the Wolfman, Ghost of Frankenstein, and Son of Dracula. Yeah, I love her in Weird Woman as well. I think she's a great actress. Doesn't get enough love or credit, so glad to be inducting her into the Hall of Fame. Up next, we got DeWitt Bourdin. He was an American screenwriter and would go on to have a pretty successful career as a TV writer. The big movie he did that we did not cover on the show was The Curse of the Cat People. But what we did cover on the show was The Cat People and The Seventh Victim. Val Lewton gets all the credit for kind of doing the grown-up horror or the adult horror films of the 40s, but this is the guy who penned, Cat People and The Seventh Victim and Curse of the Cat People. So, I mean, this guy was writing them as, Val Lewton gets all the credit for producing it. This is the guy who's putting pen to paper, so glad to kind of be able to give him the respect and credit he deserves. Number 3 into the Horror Hall of Fame, we have John Carradine. American actor. He's considered one of the greatest character actors of all time. He's known, not just for horror, but westerns, and he was a Shakespearean actor as well. He played Dracula multiple times. And also, I think, as far as, outside the world of horror, his biggest film was probably The Grapes of Wrath. And, of course, he's the patriarch of the Carradine family. Stuff we did not cover that he did in the world of horror. He did Whispering Ghost, Bluebeard, The Unearthly, did multiple episodes of Matinee Theater. He did 2 episodes of Suspense and Half Human. But on this show, we've covered him on The Invisible Man, The Black Cat, Bride of Frankenstein, Captive Wild Woman, Revenge of the Zombies, The Invisible Man's Revenge, The Mummy's Ghost, Return of the Ape Man, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, The Face of Marble, and The Black Sleep. I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't know shit about John Carradine. I knew he was. It was funny. I know. Who's Kill Bill? Is that Keith Carradine? Bill Carradine. No, not Bill Carradine. David Carradine. That's it. Sorry, David Carradine. He's the famous one, I guess. But I didn't watch Kung Fu. Sorry, that was before my time, and I never watched reruns. Known for Kill Bill. Did awesome there. I was always a Robert Carradine fan because Revenge of the Nerds, that's my jam. So I was always a Robert Carradine fan. But outside of Robert Carradine and David Carradine, I didn't know any of the Carradines. Take a quick drink. And the only thing I knew about John Carradine was he was in The Howling, and that was it. So going back and watching all these old movies, I'm loving it. I think he's a great actor and definitely an icon. So yeah, definitely deserves to be on the same level as a Karloff or Lugosi. So yeah, there it is, David Carradine in our group. At number four, these aren't ranked in these. These alphabetical by their last name. But our 4th entrant into the Hall of Fame, Nina Foch. We're gonna say Foch. Could be fuck, but I'm gonna say Foch. American actress. She was actually nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. She became a staple for horror films and film noir for Columbia Pictures. And she was also a Broadway actress and did a lot of Shakespeare plays as well. Or Shakespearean plays, I should say. Outside the world of horror, I think her 2 biggest movies were probably An American in Paris and The 10 Commandments. What she's probably known for in the world of horror that we did not cover, she did 2 episodes of Tales of Tomorrow, did 3 episodes of Lights Out. She did multiple episodes of Suspense and an episode of Matinee Theater. But on this show, we got her on The Return of the Vampire and Cry of the Werewolf. Particularly for me, Return of the Vampire, I thought she turned in a hell of a performance, and that's really why she's into this Hall of Fame, in my opinion. But no, great actress, and yeah, glad to have her aboard. Forgive me on this next one already because this last name I'm just gonna guess. Maria Ospinskoya, Russian actress, and would later become an acting teacher. In Russia, she was a very successful stage actress, but when she came to America, boom, blew up on the screen. She was actually nominated twice for Oscars. Both of them for both for Best Supporting Actress. Sadly, though, she would pass away in 1949. She was smoking in bed, and she had a stroke. And I guess like after the stroke, the cigarette fell and caught her on fire. And she was rushed to the hospital, but she would die shortly after that. So really sad to hear. The only thing that she did that we didn't really quite cover was a Mystery of Marie Roget. I don't know, but on this show we know her for The Wolfman and Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. She was the gypsy. Iconic role, iconic scene in The Wolfman. And yeah, that's all she needs to be in. So guess what? She's in the Horror Hall of Fame. So there you go, Maria. Oh, Ospinkoya? Yeah, we're going to say that. Anyway, and I apologize. I mean no disrespect when I'm butchering these names. I'm an ignorant American, so let it slide. Our sixth entrance into the Horror Hall of Fame, Bob Still, American actor. And the only thing he did on this show was Revenge of the Zombies, but I really love that performance, and he's in. Bob Still is mostly known for cowboy movies. He was a Western actor. However, I loved him in Revenge of the Zombies, and you know what? This is my show, so he's in Horror Hall of Fame. And finally, our last entrant into the Horror Hall of Fame, Maurice Tourneur. He was a French writer-director. Some stuff that he did that we did not cover would be Figures de Série and Whole Paris Sleeps. However, on this show, we know him for The System of Dr. Gordon and Carnival of Sinners. And yeah, directing in Carnival of Sinners was incredible. That's one of my favorite films that we've covered on the show, in my top 10. As far as what we cover on the show. And yeah, he's in for that. So there you have it, guys. To all 7 of you, welcome to the Horror Hall of Fame. And go ahead and take your seat among the greats. Take a drink. Alrighty. So guys, there you have it. That's the Horror Hall of Fame class of 1957. So now we got that out of the way. Let's get into our top 10. So the top 10 horror films of 1957. We're going to kick things off with number 10, Lust of the Vampire. It takes place in Paris. All these girls are turning up dead, and their blood has been drained. We got this journalist who's investigating this thing, and kind of a side plot. There's a girl from like this really rich family who's trying to fuck him, trying to get in his pants, trying to seduce him. So, anyways, so that's the plot right there. The film director, dude by the name of Ricardo Freda, we'll go with that. He was originally the director, and then he quit midway through production. There's different accounts as to why he quit, but either way, dude quit. And his cinematographer, Mario Bava, would step up to the plate. So Mario Bava getting his feet wet and his first film officially as a director. This is actually the first Italian horror film during the sound era, so has that going for it. This actually has multiple titles. This is also known as I Vampiri, The Vampires, and The Devil's Commandment, which is what's known here in the States as. In fact, horror films were actually banned in Italy during the 30s and 40s. However, the industry of film was growing in Italy, and so as the film industry grew, they needed more genres to cover, and I guess they finally just lifted the ban and said, fuck it, go for it. Some elements they used in the story were parts of the legend, or that's not the legend, I mean, she's a real historical figure, Elizabeth Bathory, who, if you remember, she was the queen that would bathe in virgin blood to remain youthful. And, of course, there's elements of The House of the Fall of Usher, story by Edgar Allan Poe as well. Bava, not only did he direct this thing and was a cinematographer, he also did makeup effects as well, which, of course, he did not get credit for. He went uncredited. I forget who they gave credit to. I think his assistant or whatever. But either way, in fact, he's not just that. He's also the writer. He after he took over as director, he actually changed quite a bit of the plot, which was crazy because they shot a majority of the film already. So he was just like, fuck it, we're going to change this. And he changed the ending as well. So there you have that. When it came out, it had mixed reviews. When it was released. In fact, to this day, it still gets mixed reviews. There's some people who just don't like it for whatever reason. But the one thing they all do consider is that this is kind of like, this deserves the honor of being the movie that kind of opened the doors for Italian horror. Like, at this point on, Italian horror is going to get really good, and this was kind of like the gateway film to all that. So, despite the fact this actually had didn't have any good commercial success as well, the crew still stayed in the genre of horror. Like most of them would go on to keep working at it, so which is always good news. The Devil's Commandment, I guess it's heavily re-edited and more Americanized, if you will, which I didn't see that version of it. But anyway, Al Lewis would make his film debut in this. Al Lewis, as you know, would go and play Grandpa Munster. So there's that. So what I think about this movie, it's all right. I enjoyed it. It felt typical. And then spoiler alert, so skip ahead, good 30 seconds or so. I kind of figured that the girl who is after him, I just had this feeling. I didn't know how they was going to pull it off or storyline, how it makes sense, but I just had a feeling that she was going to be her own grandmother and that she was somehow like defying age or whatever. It just made sense to me thinking it out. So yeah, overall, I give it a thumbs up. I thought it was all right. Like I said, nothing special, kind of middle of the road. The movie has a 6.5 on IMDb, and it actually made 3.7 million. That sounds like it was a success. I don't know if that just means in total, like through re-releases and stuff as history's gone on, but either way, yeah, there you have it. That is The Lust of the Vampire. So we're going to move on now to number 9, The Black Scorpion. So down in Mexico, this volcano erupts, and with it comes all these giant scorpions crawling out of the earth, and they just start rampaging through all these villages and everything, and eventually make their way down to Mexico City. Movie stars Richard Dennings. Sorry, there's no S there. Richard Denning. I am a big fan of this guy, becoming a big fan. It's funny because it's just like, I didn't know who this guy was at all. If you would have mentioned the name to me, I'd be like, I don't know who that is. And then I watched him in Creature from Black Lagoon, and then he just keeps popping up, and I'm just like, dude, Richard Denning. So, I don't know, becoming a big fan of this guy right now. Sorry, I took a drink. Didn't call it out. Due to a scheduling issue, they couldn't get Ray Harryhausen to do the special effects on this movie, but they did get the guy who did the effects for King Kong. He did the stop motion effects there, so they got him on the case, and he actually reused some props from the old King Kong movies as well. The reviews for this movie was actually pretty bad, but the one thing they all praised was the special effects. Like, that was the one thing that everyone kind of said was all right. Kind of funny little tidbit here. The sound that the scorpions make is the same sound that the ants made in Them. So there you go. There's your little connection there. What do I think about this movie? I liked it. Anytime you get a giant insect tearing shit up, I'm always for it. I like giant insect movies. So I was cool with it. In fact, it's Richard Denning with an extra plus. I love the opening when they get to the village and it's been kind of ransacked and they find the baby. Like, that's kind of some dark shit right there. Like, the baby's fine. Its parents isn't. The parents are fucking dead, which that just adds another layer of gloom to it. But yeah, I wasn't expecting that. So when there's like, I hear a baby, I thought you'd find like a whole family like tucked away like in a closet somewhere. It's like, no, just the baby. Everyone else is fucking dead in this thing. And they kind of played off casually too. They're like, oh, we'll just bring the baby to the town and just drop it off. And they do. That's just what they do. Like, hey, you take this baby, and they just hand it off to like the local priest or whatever. It's just, I don't know. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Like I said, it's my genre, so I'm a fan. However, it does have a 5.4 on IMDb and a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes. So clearly not everyone's a fan of this thing. But, again, I am, so go fuck yourself. All right, moving on. Number 8, we have The Curse of the Aztec Mummy. So, the Bat, crime lord down in Mexico, he's trying to get the treasure from the princess's tomb. And, of course, we all know the princess is the reincarnated version, she's the girlfriend of this doctor, and who's also like an archaeologist, I guess. Anyways, she's the reincarnated version of this princess. So, he kidnaps her to try to find these jewels. However, he ends up running into not just her fiance, doctor fiance, whatever, but, his his assistant, and we get the debut of a luchador wrestling superhero, El Angel. So the Bat versus El Angel, and then on top of all that, when they finally do get to the tomb, there's the Mummy who is protecting it. So what's going on here? This is the second film in the Aztec Mummy series. When it came out, it had mixed to negative reviews. However, this is the first Mexican film to feature a pro wrestler superhero, which would become a very popular subgenre in the 60s and 70s. One thing about this movie, I loved it. In fact, spoiler alert, we're going to have part 1 higher on the list. But personally, I like this one better. I never got the luchador superhero. Like, I've never seen any of those movies before. I was aware of them. So the fact that I got to see one and it was like the first one, that was pretty special. And I loved it. I thought it was great. This really was less horror. It reminded me of like the old Batman serials, actually. Did those superhero serials up here in America. And so anyways, I don't know. I love that. And I guess I'm gonna tip my hand a little bit with my review of the first one. But what I love about these movies is there's so much going on. Like, and I mean that in a good way, because I don't know. My whole thing is like, if you got a long movie, then keep the shit simple. I don't need a lot going on. Just keep it straight. But short films, you pack it with all you got. Let's make this hour, 20 minutes. Let's make it memorable. Let's do some shit. And I just feel like they got a lot going on in these movies, so I like that aspect of it. The storyline's really good. I didn't think I would like any of these Mexican mummy movies. I just figured they'd be shit. Call me a racist, even though I did give the Spanish language version of Dracula higher kudos than the regular Dracula. I just figured these Mexican horror films would be garbage, and I've been pleasantly surprised this whole time, dating back to was it The Covenant or something like that, with the Spanish missionary, or the church. And turned out the ghosts were running it the whole time. Like, I love that movie. Thought that movie was fucking awesome. And yeah, I really dig this Curse of the Aztec Mummy. So IMDb gave it a low 3.9. Go fuck yourself. I had fun with it. I thought it was a good movie. I'd go much, much higher. So the Curse of the Aztec Mummy, number 8. At number 7, we got the Aztec Mummy. So basically, you get this doctor / archaeologist who's experimenting with hypnotic regression. And so basically he ends up hypnotizing his fiance, and it turns out that she was actually a reincarnated Aztec princess. And so, but she had a forbidden love affair with this Aztec warrior. And so basically they hid her body in this temple, or a pyramid, if you will. Actually, not if you will. It was a pyramid. And they had all the treasure there, but they also had the mummy cursed, and he has to stand guard over the stuff. And so, you got the fiance, the main doctor, and his fiance, the princess, reincarnated princess. And then you got his assistant, and then, of course, her father. And they're basically leading this, expedition down to find this treasure. And, of course, they end up finding, like, this golden breastplate, and it has a map on it that shows them where the thing is. However, they run into the mummy. And, of course, the mummy, chases them out of there and then follows them back to their house. Now, while all this is going on, we mentioned in the part 2, the Bat. The Bat actually is a colleague of the main character. And the Bat has his own little crime syndicate and everything. So not only is the mummy coming after him, but the Bat is with his gang as well. And they're all going after the reincarnated princess to get that breastplate / map to find the treasure. A lot going on. Again, that's what I love about it. Anyways, this was filmed back to back with The Curse of the Aztec Mummy and The Robot versus the Aztec Mummy. So they got the whole first trilogy done all in one shot to save money. This borrowed a lot, obviously, from the Universal Mummy film. The big difference was they changed Egyptians to Aztecs to make it more, localized flavor, if you will. So the past life regression theory was very popular at the time in the news. So they were just kind of ripping it out of the headlines, really. Which is kind of what they did with the Mummy in the first place. Like that whole film was just because Egyptian sensationalism was at an all time high because the curse of or the legend of the curse of King Tut's tomb and all that stuff. So it's kind of funny how it's all the same. You just take crazy headlines out of the news and there you go. Take a quick drink. When this thing came out, it got poor reviews, but it was a commercial success, and it would actually lead to more Mexican rip-offs of Universal horror films. So we got that going. I think they did like a vampire movie, and they also did a werewolf movie. So yeah, hope to cross paths with those. Anyways, this would gain a fault following in the following years. There was like I mentioned before, with what was that movie? The Devil's Commandment, the Lust of the Vampire. This also had a very heavily re-edited, Americanized version with new cast, new actors, new scenes, everything. It was called Attack of the Mayan Mummy, which I thought was hilarious. That they're just like, it's all Mexico, it's all the same. Mayans, Aztecs, call them Incas, it don't matter, it's all the same. But apparently they shot a whole other version of this. I have not seen that, but it's funny how we don't do that anymore. I guess because it's just be very culturally insensitive, but it's like we remake movies all the time, but it's like, why don't we just take those movies, re-edit, say fuck it. Just show how insensitive you are. What about this movie, much like the first one, or the other one like we just covered, I liked it. I think the other one, The Curse of the Aztec Mummy, was better, but as far as the Aztec Mummy goes, it's still solid. And I love that it just, again, it didn't feel like a horror film. It definitely just felt like an old superhero crime, serial. Like I said, I've seen a handful of those from the 30s and 40s, and some of them are good, some of them are bad, but this was like the good version of it. Again, very much like the Mummy, you could tell they took a lot from that, even like the pacing and everything. But no, overall, really dug it. Big fan. IMDb gave it 4.6 because they have no taste. So I shouldn't say IMDb. The users of IMDb gave it a 4.6. But either way, so yeah, Aztec Mummy, I enjoyed it, but yeah, others did not. So we're gonna move on now to number 6, and Attack of the Crab Monsters. So basically, we've got these scientists on this island, and of course, the island is now submerging and sinking into the ocean. However, on this island with these scientists, we have these really smart giant crabs that's coming to kill them. This is directed by Roger Corman, and that's the most Roger Corman plot I've ever heard. So I'm so happy to be in this era. I've been waiting to do Roger Corman for a while now. I was just like, I know this dude's really hitting it off in the 50s, and here we are, 57, and we're finally hitting some Corman horror. So look out. The writer, Charles B. Griffith, he actually directed a lot of the underwater scenes. Actually, not a lot. He did them all. So yeah, kind of cool right there. This was actually Corman's very first successful film, and he credits the title of this film to its success. And that's one thing I totally agree with. I am all for cheesy titles. You give me, Sharknado, I'm fucking there. Like, give me the title that's just so ridiculous. The thing I hate, though, and it's really true for like Asylum, for the most part, has like the best titles today, but they're boring as shit. And I feel like that's kind of the case in a lot of these 50s movies too, where it's like, yeah, the title's there, but when you watch it, it's just like, oh, this is it. And so, I don't know. I always want to be that filmmaker who would come up with a crazy title, but then give you the movie that lives up to that title, Anyways, I guess when Corman was talking to Griffith about, doing this movie, he told him, when you write it, I want suspense and action in every scene. I'm like, why don't more people do that? Like, especially if you're doing these purposely low-budget horror films, yes, that's how you make it. I don't need plot. I don't need a lot of story and character development. Like, fuck, just get to it. Love it. Anyways, this I mentioned earlier, I was a teenage werewolf and, whatnot, the rise of, drive-in horror. Well, this is part of that very first wave of, like, teenage drive-in horror movies, He knew the audience he was going to pitch to. He knew the kind of titles you'd make, and then, boom, there you have it. Churn them out cheap and hope to make a profit, which he would do. So there you go. It's a great model. This thing, of course, had mixed reviews. He's like, fuck you, I already have your money, so ain't worried about it. Oh, Russell Johnson was in this thing, professor from Gilligan's Island. And anyways, there's a story that he broke his toe during a scene he was filming when he was in the water, and Corman basically had a stagehand just tape his toe up and then told him to get back in the water so he can finish the scene. Which a part of me is like, that's so awesome, but the other part of me is like, oh, that's kind of a dick thing too. Like, and obviously I'm not putting myself on the same level, obviously. But you know, I'm a director, and there's a part of me that wishes I could just do that. Now, I will admit, if they're willing to do it, then I will have no problem exploiting that. So, like, if the guy broke his toe, and I'm like, listen, you know, obviously we'll get you to a doctor, unless you can tough it out. And if he's like, I'll tough it out, but perfect, back in the water. All right, guys, you know, take 3. So I don't know. I just love Roger Corman. I love his style, just brilliant. Anyways, and then I mentioned, you know, Charles Griffin not only did he write his thing and actually directed the underwater scenes, he was actually, he had a small role. He was the sailor who gets his head bitten off by the crab in the very beginning of the movie. So there you have that. One thing about this movie, I really liked it. It's fun, it's cheesy, it's quick. It's all killer, no filler, and that's what I love about it. I want my horror films to be punk rock. Just give me the shit, give me the action, give me the goods, get the fuck out of the way. Only thing this thing is lacking some titties. It's 1957, so I know we ain't gonna get titties for some while, but anyways, yeah, I don't know. I really dug it. I think the plot's really cool. I think he shot it well. Like, looking back, it's clear they had no money. You could not see the island sinking into the water. But you didn't have to. And the way they shoot it is perfect enough. I love... Now, the crab monsters look ridiculous. There's no getting around that. But the fact that they're kind of like radioactive or feeding off the electricity or whatever the fuck the cheesy reason they're, you know, giant, intelligent crab monsters. I'm cool with it. Like I said, it fits into that B-movie, you know, formula, you know, stock perfectly. So, yeah, I liked it. This thing only got a 4.9 on IMDb and a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it made like 900,000 at the box office. So, who's laughing now, fuckers? So, anyways, yes, Attack of the Crab Monsters, good stuff. So, moving on now to number 5. We're at the halfway mark. Number 5, we have Daughter of Dr. Jekyll. This young girl realizes that she is the daughter of the infamous Dr. Jekyll, who had the split personality of Mr. Hyde as well, or the alter ego, I should say. And she realizes that she may actually start having the same kind of, you know, split personality, and her other alter ego may be a killer. So this is directed by horror Hall of Famer, I should say, Edgar G. Ulmer, sorry. And it stars Gloria Talbot and John Agar. I really need to start finding people pronouncing these names online. Here's the Retro Horror Academy. We just half-ass it. We aren't ashamed to admit it. Take a drink. So, this is one of only 3 werewolf movies that was made during the 50s. Which is crazy. This is a fucking werewolf movie, but it is what it is. Anyways, the other 2 were The Werewolf and I Was a Teenage Werewolf. So, this got mediocre to bad reviews. Although Gloria Talbot really loved the movie. John Agar did not. So what I think about this movie, I thought the werewolf twist was kind of different. I wasn't expecting it. So when it turns out to be that, I was cool with it. But I don't know. This had like a She-Wolf of London vibe to it. Like, you know early on that she's not crazy. And you know like she's being put up to this thing. You don't know the reasons just yet. And you don't know the whys and hows. Even though basically, and like I said, that's where the werewolf subplot kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, oh, really? It really was a werewolf? Like, it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, there was no werewolf to begin with. But anyways, so with the exception of the werewolf thing, it was just kind of business as usual. And I really thought it was kind of slow at parts. I still liked it. I'm giving it a thumbs up. But, it was rather slow. I thought Gloria Talbot did a really good job. Not really for anybody else, but I really liked her in this. So, anyways, and I mean, I've seen John Agar and other stuff, so I know we'll get some fun John movies. But yeah, as far as this movie goes, I mean, really, Gloria is the only acting standout here. Like I said, yeah, it's a little slow for my taste, but that's me. This thing has a 5.4 on IMDb, so there you have it. So, anyways, there you go. We're moving on now to number 4. And I'm talking about the giant claw. So basically, there's all this mystery surrounding these UFO sightings. And turns out it's not a UFO, it's a giant bird who's just flying around, killing people, and destroying buildings and shit. This is produced by Sam Katzman, another Horror Hall of Famer, partially influenced by the Japanese film Rodan. And at the time, there was a lot in the news about particle physics dealing with matter and antimatter, so that kind of found its way into this script as well. Originally supposed to have Ray Harryhausen do the effects, but there wasn't enough money in the budget. So they basically went to an effects studio out of Mexico to create the creature. My God. I'll get to that in a minute. Anyways, this thing got negative reviews with everybody mocking the look of the creature. The giant claw. Yeah. They used stock footage from two different films. So anytime you see like the scared crowds with people panicking and running around, that was from The Day the Earth Stood Still. And then when you see the Washington Monument collapsing, that was from Earth versus the Flying Saucers. So what about this movie? Okay, first I'll just say right now, I do think that this movie gets way too much shit than it deserves. Because I do think the first half or part of this movie, it's very well done. Like, we know, especially now, because we're, in the future, watching this in the past, so we know it's a giant bird attacking everybody. But I can imagine, I'm not sure what the trailer was like. I'm not sure if that, it had to be. I'm looking at the poster right now, and you're seeing a giant bird on a, Empire State Building, so I guess it had to be, it's called the Giant Claw, obviously, so it's going to be a giant bird. But, early on, though, there's a lot of good suspense and story and the mystery building up to it. This UFO just randomly attacking, and people are spotting it on the radar, but they can't see it, past that. Or no, they're seeing glimpses of it, but it's not on the radar. That's what it is. And so, I think that first part's really good. It's literally when you see the fucking bird itself that you just start laughing, and you're like, "Fuck this movie." In fact, there's a story where I guess was it Jeff Morrow, the main actor in this movie. Like, he was literally in the theater watching this, and when he saw the giant bird and heard everybody laughing, he ducked out of the theater because he did not want a single person to recognize him from this movie. Hilarious. The bird looks, this is for my wrestling fans out there, it looks like the gobbledygooker. Like a giant gobbledygooker. It has, the head so ridiculous. Like, it's so bad, and you're just like, what the fuck? If ever there was a time to just take the Jaws route and just not show the creature as much, it was now. But dude, they go all in on this thing at the end. It's hilarious. And that's what drops it. Don't get me wrong, at that point the movie does get shit on, and it deserves it, but it really only deserves it for the creature effect. I think everything else is standard of the time. So it really just depends on like what your feelings are of these types of movies. If you're not a fan, then clearly you wouldn't be a fan anyways. But if you liked these, giant creature, B flicks, then I don't see why you wouldn't like the first half of this movie, because it follows the same formula as everything else. Unless that's your complaint, that's too generic. But that's not the complaint. Everyone just goes to like, it's a shit film because of the giant bird. And it's like, you're right, but it's not the whole movie. It's just the last part. Anyway, just garbage. IMDb gave it a 4.6. So, yes, we got people who love giant cheese in this academy, and that's why some of these movies get up there higher than they should. So, and that's not even the one I'm worried about yet. We haven't even got there yet. So we're moving on now, though. This is our number 3 horror film of 1957. Winner of the Bronze Skull Award. I am, of course, talking about Curse of the Demon. We get this American who's going to like this paranormal supernatural conference in London, and he ends up kind of getting dragged into this investigation as he's researching, trying to figure out what's going on with this devil worshipper. So this is directed by Jacques Tourneur, who his father Maurice Turner we just inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I tell you right now, Jacques was one of these guys who worked with Val Lewton and them at RKO. So this guy's definitely going to be destined to be in the Hall of Fame. For Christ's sake, if Bob Steele made it to the Hall of Fame, Jacques going to make it. He'll be fine. This was actually originally known as Night of the Demon. However, the version I saw was Curse of the Demon, so there you go. This is actually considered to be one of the greatest horror films of all time. Like, people love this movie. It's, like I said, considered a classic within the genre. Turns out Jacques would get into it with the producer quite a bit during the production of this film. One of the big things that they came, the argument about was the director didn't want to show the creature, or sorry, the demon at all. However, the producer kind of got his wish on that and did it anyways. The reason they did the title change also was apparently there was a movie that came out in America called Night of the Iguana, and they didn't want people to get confused with Night of the Demon and Night of the Iguana, which to me is like the dumbest thing I ever heard. Because like, who's confusing that? Like, they're literally two different creatures. Iguana, a demon. Like, who's going up to the box office and is like, 2 for Night of the Demon, please, and they get tickets for Iguana instead, and then they're sitting there like, well, where the fuck's the demon at? There's a giant fucking lizard. That bitch told me wrong. Like, that's never happening. So the fact that this is like an issue, I thought was ridiculous. Anyway, this thing got great reviews when it came out. This was actually on Martin Scorsese's top 11 scariest films of all time list. It's also considered a precursor to the British folk horror cycle that would be coming up. So there you go. The character of Julian Carswell, the leader of this devil worshipping cult, he's based on Aleister Crowley. And another little tidbit here: Joanne's license plate includes the number 666, which is the mark of the beast. So there you go. Why about this movie? I really dug it. I thought it was a really good movie. Love the suspense in this thing. I love when I just love the. I don't know. I'm cool with the fact that the demon's real. Like, that's always my issue with those fucking Val Lewton films. It's like, it's all ambiguous and you'll never know. It's like, go fuck yourself. Like, I want to know. And here it's like, no, it's very clear. There's a demon. He comes out of the smoke. He'll come after your ass. Because to me, with our main character being the skeptic that he is, we know he's in danger. We're not worried that it's going to be a human element that's going to try to attack him to prove that there's a demon. It's like, no, you're actually going to be chased by a demon. So guess what? Get your shit together. Shape up. I liked it. I love the finale with them trying to pass off the paper to each other. Thought that scene was very well done. Yeah, overall, just big thumbs up on this thing. Really, really dug it. This thing has a 7.4 on IMDb and a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So there you have that. Guys, I'm sorry. Very unprofessional. I'm going to blow my nose real quick. I don't edit shit on this show. Oh, that's gross. All right. I'm back. Anyways, what you guys listening to, right? The real Retro Academy. So anyways, there you have it. Curse of the Demon. So we're moving on now to number 2. And I'm talking about, and this is the winner of the Silver Skull Award, The Curse of Frankenstein. So, Baron Frankenstein, he is awaiting the death penalty. He's ready to be executed. And he's telling his story to a priest. Telling him about, how he basically created a creature, gave it life, and then how that, creature went on a rampage. And that's why he shouldn't be executed. Alright, so this is, of course, loosely based on the Mary Shelley Frankenstein novel. And this was Hammer's first color horror film. And it also launched, the Hammer horror films. So, this started the Hammer Frankenstein series, and it would lead to the Dracula and Mummy series as well. So there you go. This is directed by Terence Fisher and stars Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Hazel Court. This was Peter Cushing's very first leading role, and it was reported that the only reason that Christopher Lee was hired was because of his height. They had to have a tall Frankenstein's monster. So commercial success. Apparently it said 70 times its budget. It's pretty fucking good. And it was the one of the most successful films to be released here in America even. So international does awesome here at stateside. So you gotta love that. Oddly enough, this was panned by the UK critics. They thought it was too gory and didn't like the changes that they made to the storyline. However, here in America, it was more well received. It seemed like we were kind of ahead of the curve when it came to horror at that time. We kind of lose that edge later on, but at this time, we're dominating. Both directors, Martin Scorsese and Tim Burton, said that they cite this film as one of the influences on their work. Of course, this movie is critically acclaimed worldwide, today. So UK finally got over it and realized they were wrong. Anyway, this will be followed by 6 sequels. Kind of interesting about these sequels is like, whereas the Universal Frankenstein series focused on the monster movie to movie, this one actually focuses on Dr. Frankenstein, which I thought is actually better. You can get more out of that, I think, than just following the zombie around. So yeah, kind of different there. Like it. This will also get remade later on as The Horror of Frankenstein, but it was more of a horror comedy, so kind of have a parody vibe to it. This was actually the first time that Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing would meet. They'd become lifelong friends after this. In fact, the anecdote was that Christopher Lee was pissed. He storms into Peter Cushing's dressing room, and he's like, "I've got no lines." To which Peter Cushing replied something like, "Well, you're lucky. I've read the script." Fucking gold. Hazel Court's daughter actually played that younger version of herself in this movie. Apparently she didn't like it, but she did it, so, kind of cool. I mentioned earlier that, Christopher Lee was actually cast because of his height, and that's partially true. It came down to two people, actually. Him and this other guy. In fact, the other guy was actually taller than Christopher Lee. However, what the breaking thing was or the deciding factor, they asked them both separately, like, hey, what's the lowest that you're willing to do this movie for? Like, what's the cheapest? And the other guy said he'd do it for 10 pounds a day, whereas Christopher Lee said, I'll do it for 8 pounds a day. So Christopher Lee got it, and then his career blew the fuck up. So crazy how things work sometimes, but there you have it. This is actually credited for kind of resurrecting the horror genre, and not just in the UK, but just kind of worldwide, which is true. We've been having horror films off and on, but they've been like, more of the sci-fi variety. I mean, you've had a handful of, other ones mixed in, but for the most part, all we've been doing is sci-fi films. And so this is the first time, and granted there's sci-fi elements in Frankenstein. There always has been. I'm not, disputing that. But this really brings horror back. And so, yeah, really cool to see, this is kind of where, this is where you can kind of pinpoint it at. So, this is considered the most profitable film to be shot by a British studio in England. I don't know what distinction there. I guess maybe there's other international films that were filmed in England that were more successful, and that's why they had to put that thing on there. But either way, that's that. This is the first Frankenstein film to be shot in color. The makeup was actually, they were trying to figure out what to do with the makeup on and off, because you can't do the Universal makeup because they will fucking sue you. And so this is kind of a split decision day of, thing, the route they went with it. So there you have that. This is a personal favorite film of director Guillermo del Toro. This is originally going to be a remake shot in black and white of the Universal horror film. They're actually going to get Boris Karloff, but when Universal got wind of this, they threatened to sue. So that's why they changed it up significantly. I can't pronounce this dude's last name. Robert Urquhart. He's the good guy in the movie. Anyways, he hated the movie. He was so disgusted, he said that he vowed never to make another horror film or work for Hammer ever again. And he kept that promise, so what a pussy. Anyways, apparently the story behind this is these two guys brought a script to Hammer. Hammer liked it. They bought it. But then they cut the two guys loose and then rewrote it and did their own thing. Well, the two guys that they cut loose would go on to start Amicus Films, which would be Hammer's rival in the world of horror, from this point on. So, kind of neat. That's where that started from as well. Highest grossing British film. The trio of Fisher, Cushing, and Lee would go on to do Horror of Dracula and The Mummy. So not only are they starting the franchises, or in this one, they're starting franchises elsewhere as well. So there you go. The line, "Perhaps you better start from the beginning," was actually used by the band White Zombie in the song Electric Head Part 1. So what I think about this movie, I fucking loved it. It's in my top 10 of what we've done so far. High up there too. Probably my number 2 or number 3, probably. It's funny. It's a story you've seen before, but the way they put a little spin on it just made it better. I like that Frankenstein is more of a dick. Like, he was always a good guy. Like, he was mad, obviously, in the other films, in the Universal series, but he always had that heart of good. And this one, no, Peter Cushing's a dick in this movie, and he's okay with it. He's womanizing, and he's going to stop at nothing. And when he needs to get a new brain, he's not just waiting for someone else to die. He murders to get a brain for it. I don't know. I like that. The fact that, again, we're introducing some blood to this thing. It's going to be a while before we get some tits, but, hey, we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. This is just taking horror to a whole new level. And, again, whereas I think what Mexico did with the Aztec Mummy series, not really on the same level as Hammer, but they were doing something different. And it was still good. And this one, not only is it doing something different, it's doing something better. And I don't know. I just love that, we're taking it in a whole new direction, and you can do so much more with it, I think. Which is why I think, we're going to look, more fondly on these Hammer films. And I'm thinking, strictly from the Academy's point of view, we're going to be looking at these, Hammer films probably more fondly than the Universal movies. The Universal movies will start bleeding together after a while. And again, I haven't seen all the Hammer horror films, so I'm really excited to get into this, new era here. So, but yeah, no, I really loved it. I thought this movie was great. It's got a 7 on IMDb, 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it made $8 million. So there you have it. Alrighty, guys, we're finally here. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna just power through all the trivia, and then when I get to like my reasonings, I'll give you the reason that the Academy decided to make this movie #1. So let's just get to it. Let's not drag this out anymore. What's the #1 horror film in 1957 and winner of the Golden Skull Award? Plan 9 from Outer Space. That's right. Aliens are attacking Earth, and they're enacting Plan 9, which involves raising the dead to attack us. This thing was written, directed, produced, and edited by Ed Wood. Originally, it was entitled Grave Robbers from Outer Space. It stars Tor Johnson, Vampira, Bela Lugosi, and Lyle Talbot. Considered one of the worst films of all time. But it's also considered, be so bad, it's good. This has gained a very large cult following in recent years. Criswell, the psychic at the beginning of the movie, actually had his own show, and a lot of the lines that he uses was lifted straight from his TV show. So, this is one of the first movies to kind of depict a distrust from the public towards the government. They're covering up the UFO story initially in this movie, and at that point, all movies kind of depicted like the government is, hey, okay, if there's something going on, the government's going to take care of this for you. And that's not the case in this movie, which, again, it doesn't get credit for that because it's considered a shit film. So, but anyways, it is the first time we kind of get that. So, anyways, this is the second in the Kelton trilogy. The first one was Bride of the Monster, which we covered on the show, followed by Night of the Ghoul. And yes, Officer Kelton is a recurring character in all three. The only thing that really kind of ties all three films together. So they are kind of technically sequels to one another. But yeah, Kelton trilogy. There's been claims that paper plates and hubcaps were used to be the UFOs in this movie, but it's been disputed. Apparently, they said that it was actually toy models that were used to make this movie. But again, I wasn't there, so I couldn't tell you either way. Military stock footage was used in this film. Ed Wood is known for using stock footage quite a bit, so he got his hands on some military grade shit, and there you go. We've covered this extensively before. We'll kind of touch on it briefly here. This was Bela Lugosi's last movie. Take a drink. He was in very bad health at the time of this movie, and actually before this movie. The footage that they do shoot with him is shot in front of Tor Johnson's house, actually. And basically what happened was they were just shooting test footage, but he died. And they decided, the next movie, which was Plan 9, they would just basically use him for his name value. And then, somehow try to write the story around him. They were going to do the whole story around him. That plan, that was clearly going to be even more of a nightmare. So they just kind of wrote the opening around him, and that was it. It's been said that it's clearly exploitation. People have kind of faulted Ed Wood for doing that. He claimed it was not exploitation, but the fact that it was a loving tribute to his friend Bela Lugosi. I think it's both. I think because clearly it's well documented that Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi were great friends. If the movie Ed Wood's to be believed, he was in awe of Bela Lugosi, and so yeah, he probably was wanting to kind of give him this nice little send off. However, the businessman inside of him was like, "Ooh, it's going to make this movie even better if it has Bela Lugosi." And I truly think that's why we have Bela Lugosi in this movie. And I'm not condemning him. Honestly, I would probably do the same thing. That sounds cold, but honestly, I feel like A, Lugosi would be cool with it. B, I'd be cool with it if it was the shoes on the other foot. If I was starring someone's movie and died, and maybe I had some infamy to my name or something that was going to draw money, if they can use me in my death, go for it. I'm all for it. So yeah, there you have it. Anyways, Gregory L. Walcott and Vampira, they both hated this movie. They did not like it at all. This movie would get colorized and even a 3D version in later re-releases. There were some remakes and sequels, and even a comic sequel that was called Planet 9 from Outer Space 30 years later. But all the sequels and remakes and whatnot, they were all like ridiculously low budget. Like I'm talking, I doubt they had theatrical release, and if they did, it's probably like one of those they opened up in like one tiny theater in a small town somewhere type of release. Like, again, not put myself on the level of Ed Wood, even though it probably wouldn't be that hard. I just don't have the fame. When we released our movie, Unspeakable Acts, that's what it was. It was a small bar and grill that played movies in the back, and that's where we, premiered our film. So I'm sure those movies were kind of along the same lines as that, I'm guessing. Anyways, yeah, this was actually used as a subplot in the episode of Seinfeld, the Chinese restaurant, where they're trying to hurry up and make the movie. This is the movie they're trying to make. However, they have to wait for their, table to open up, and they wait the whole time, and they don't end up seeing it. And, of course, I just mentioned it earlier, but the movie Ed Wood, directed by Tim Burton, actually depicts the making of this movie right here. So, there you go. The detective who, points the gun at himself, apparently he did it deliberately. He says he actually wanted to see if Ed Wood was paying attention. And clearly he wasn't, so there you go. It wasn't until 1980, I guess, when a critic wrote that this movie was the worst movie ever made, that this actually started picking up, its reputation. I guess up until that point, it was just kind of a forgotten horror film that would be played on TV from time to time. But again, one guy bitched about it, and then everybody, and at that point, the cult following was born, so there you have that. Even though it's considered one of the worst movies of all time, Ed Wood apparently still considered his pride and joy, even up until his death, so... Vampira, she would put her makeup and costume on and then ride the bus to the set. So, yeah, fans of Vampira back in the 50s, maybe got a chance to ride a bus with her in full makeup. So there you go. Which I think she's pretty much always in that get-up anyways, right? Isn't that kind of her thing? I don't know. Anyways, the tombstones famously made out of styrofoam and cardboard, and they would waffle when you walked by them in the movie. So there you go. Apparently, another measure to save money, they reused the shower curtain multiple times. So apparently the door to the cockpit in the alien spaceship or whatever, shower curtain. When they go to unveil the bomb, shower curtain. And then it was actually used as an actual shower curtain in one scene. So there you go. That shower curtain got around. The grave robbers in the beginning of the movie was actually producers of this movie. And finally, Lyle Talbot, how do you pronounce it? He played Commissioner Gordon in the 1949 Batman and Robin serial. And the guy who played Robin would actually go on to play one of the guys who's carrying a stretcher in this movie. So there you go, full circle. All right. So why is this the number one horror film of 1957? Is it a good movie? No. In fact, I hate this movie. This is only a movie that's fun to watch if you got other people to watch it with. The first time I watched this movie was by myself because I heard it was so bad it's good. Now, I have watched It's So Bad It's Good movies by myself and find them entertaining. I love The Room. I love Ricky-O, The Story of Ricky. Fucking love that movie. This, though, it's just dreadfully boring. It's not until you watch, riff tracks do, commentary tracks or other people riffing it, or watch it with a crowd, or watch bad reviews of it, that you can truly get enjoyment out of this thing. But by itself, it's just shit. It's a shit film. However, it's so notorious. As much as I love Curse of of Frankenstein, you say Curse of Frankenstein to a non-horror fan, they're just going to assume you're talking about some kind of Universal film. They don't know what The Hammer is. They don't fucking know it's British. You say, hey, you ever seen Curse of Frankenstein? They're all going to say no. But you ask a non-horror fan about Planet 9 from Outer Space, they're going to at least know. Maybe not have seen it, but they're going to know what you're talking about. This was a lot of internal struggles here at the Retro Horror Academy because, some of us is like, fuck it, shouldn't even be in the top 10. And then some of us is like, well, you know what, though? It's so famous. It's the most well-known movie from this list. Anyways, after lots of deliberation and compromise, what compromise is fucking won. This is it. It's our number one horror film. It's the winner of the Golden Skull Award, and it just is what it is. Any complaints, just leave them down below, and we'll not read them. So anyways, guys, there you have it. There is your top 10 and your Horror Hall of Fame class of 57. Let's just go through them real quick as a recap. In the Horror Hall of Fame, we got Evelyn Ankers, DeWitt Bourdin, John Carradine, Nina Foch, Maria Ospinskoya, Bob Steele, and Maurice Turner. And then in our top 10, we had Lust of the Vampire, The Black Scorpion, The Curse of the Aztec Mummy, Attack of the Crab Monsters, Daughter of Dr. Jekyll, The Giant Claw, and then winner of the Bronze Skull Award, Curse of the Demon, winner of the Silver Skull Award, Curse of Frankenstein, and then the winner of the Golden Skull Award, Plan 9 from Outer Space. So there you guys have it. There it is. That was the year in horror in 1957. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And yeah, that was 1957 in horror. On behalf of the Retro Horror Academy, my name is Daniel Richardson, and you're dismissed.